Hello, friends. Welcome to CLATZY, where your CLAT preparation becomes as easy as possible. And I try to ensure that this CLAT preparation exercise doesn't become a complicated one for you. And for that matter, my objective is to ensure that you enjoy this process as much as possible, because ultimately when you give the exam you will realize that it is all about application of your mind and application of your understanding, which is what we set out to do in these lectures. Okay, so now let's not waste time and come back to the class. In the previous class, in the previous two classes, in the first class, we saw a basic difference between a contract versus agreement, where we said that only those agreements are contracts which are enforceable by law. And thereafter, we started discussing the concept of an agreement, where I told you that agreement is nothing but a combination of offer, acceptance, and consideration. And our objective is to understand each of these terms. Consideration, we will come to each of these terms, so don't bother about acceptance, consideration for now. We were looking at an offer. And we saw that an offer is nothing but a proposal to do or not to do something with the objective of obtaining the acceptance of the party to whom the offer is made. Okay, and we also saw that when we are talking about an offer, there are two parties at least. Offerer, who we also call as proposer or promiser, and then we have offeree or proposee. And when this party accepts the offer, he or she becomes a promisee. Okay, so today we will start with a concept which is extremely important when it comes to offer. We are continuing with our discussion on offer, and we will talk about how is an offer communicated. How is an offer communicated? Why is communication important? Why is communication of an offer important? The reason is extremely simple and quite logical, because an offerer makes an offer to an offeree. So there are two parties. When there are two parties, one has to make an offer to another. Now just think like this. Let's say you want to sell a pen to somebody, but you keep it in your head and you don't tell the other side. Okay, will you buy this pen for rupees 10 or rupees 15? But you keep this in your head. Does that become an offer? No, it doesn't. Because it is still in your head. You have to communicate this offer. You have to communicate this offer to the offeree. Only then your offer becomes complete. Only when the offer is communicated, it becomes complete. Okay, so on one side we saw what is an offer. Second thing to remember is that that offer needs to be communicated. So let's summarize. Number one, we saw what is an offer. Second, we've come to understand that communication of an offer is mandatory, which means that without communicating that the offer to an offeree, the offer is incomplete, which means that we have no offer. If there is no communication, there is no offer, as simple as that. And if you want to remember this concept, just think of this example that you want to sell a pen to somebody, but you don't communicate it. You keep this in your head. You don't tell your friend. You want to sell the pen to your friend, but you don't tell this to your friend, or you don't communicate this offer to your friend. You just keep it in your mind. That is not an offer. Okay, let's look at a few more examples to understand. And also, if you remember, we had seen that agreement is equal to offer plus acceptance plus consideration. If you remember, all these three conditions are required to be fulfilled in order to form an agreement. Now, if you don't communicate an offer, if you don't communicate, if you don't tell the other side about your offer, how will the other side accept that offer? You can also remember this concept with the help of this sentence, that for any agreement you need offer acceptance. Now, if you don't tell the other side what that offer is, the other side is in no position to convey its acceptance, because the other side wouldn't even know. Again, take the example of your friend. You have this offer in your mind that you want to sell the pen to your friend, but unless you tell your friend that I want to sell this pen to you for rupees 10, how will your friend know about this offer? And if he or she doesn't know, how will they communicate their acceptance, saying that okay, I want to buy this pen? All right, so this brings us to a conclusion on the aspect of communication, which is that and the an offer is complete only when it is communicated to the other party, and without such communication the offer is incomplete. Now we'll take a look at a few famous examples. First example is A's son goes missing. A's son goes missing. He sends his servant B to find his son. After the servant has gone to search for his son, A's son. A makes an offer in a newspaper saying, anyone who brings my son to me will get rupees 500. After a couple of days, after a couple of days, the servant finds the boy and brings him back. Brings him back. The servant B finds the boy and brings him back to A. A is very happy looking at his son, and he thanks B and expresses his gratitude. And he tells B that you wait for some time, let me bring a cup of tea for you. And while B is waiting for tea, he sees the newspaper advertisement. He sees the newspaper advertisement. So the newspaper was lying on the table, coffee table, where B was sitting. And while he's waiting for tea, he looks at this advertisement which says that anyone who finds A's son is entitled to a reward of rupees 500. Now, when A comes back with tea, B demands the prize money. Question: is B entitled to the prize money? Apply the concept. Concept is communication of an offer is complete when it comes to the knowledge of the offeree. This is what we saw a while ago. And without communication of an offer, without communication of an offer, there cannot be an offer. There cannot be a valid offer. Which means that if there is no valid offer, there cannot be any acceptance. Now, when we apply these facts to our example, what do we see? First, B. Was the offer communicated to him? How will we answer this question? We will answer this question by looking at our concept. Communication of an offer is complete when it comes to the knowledge of the offeree. So we have to answer this. Did the offer come to the knowledge of B? Did A's offer come to the knowledge of B? Answer is yes. But when? Although he came to know about the offer, and that is why he is asking for the prize money, but the question is, when did he become aware of this offer? He became aware after the condition had already been fulfilled, which means that there was no acceptance, and hence the court in this famous case said that there was no knowledge of the offer to be, and he, without being aware of that offer, could not have logically communicated his acceptance. Again, to keep it very simple, when he went out to look for the boy, he was not aware of the offer. B was not aware of the offer. When he found the boy, B was not aware of the offer. When B came back with the boy, B was not aware of the offer. Only after he had fulfilled the condition, which was to find the boy and bring him back to A, only after everything was done did B come to know that there was an offer like this. Therefore, this offer was never, this offer, so B never had any knowledge of this offer. And when you don't have a knowledge of the offer, it means that the communication of that offer was not complete vis-a-vis you. And if communication of that offer is not complete, then there cannot be a valid offer. If there is no valid offer, there can be no acceptance. Therefore, there is no agreement. So that was the conclusion in this case. Let's look at another example to make it simple. A makes an offer. Anyone who crosses this river by swimming will get rupees 100. At the same time, there's a person B who is drowning in the river. And somehow he is able to swim across the river. After he does so, he sees the advertisement on a billboard. What is a billboard? You must have seen those posters on road saying that all kinds of advertisements you see across the road. Okay, so he sees the billboard which says that anybody who swims across this river will get 100 rupees. So B demands rupees 100 from A. So B tells A that your offer was that anybody who swims across this river will get 100 rupees. So I swam. So you give me 100 rupees. A says that no, you were not aware of this offer. Even though I made the offer to anyone who could swim across the river. But you were not aware of the offer. You were drowning in the river, and without being aware of the offer, you swam across to save your life. So there was no question of you being aware of the offer. So that is A's defense. A says B was never aware of the offer. And this is a fact. B was actually not aware of the offer. So in this case, what will happen? B was not aware of the offer, which means that communication of this offer was not complete vis-a-vis B. Hence, B could not have given his acceptance as he was not aware of the offer. No offer means there cannot be any acceptance. Hence, there cannot be any agreement, and therefore A is not entitled to give rupees 100 to B. Okay, so this brings us to the conclusion for today, and which is something that it is a very, very important concept. Looks very simple, but trust me, when it comes to daily life, and when you actually practice law, you will see that comes quite this concept becomes quite handy if you're aware of it, if you become a contract lawyer especially, because you will see a lot of instances where there could be questions about whether the offeree was even aware of the offer. And if he was not even aware of the offer, how could he have conveyed his acceptance? So, to summarize, first point is an offer must be communicated by the offerer to the offeree. And second, communication. What is the meaning of communication? Communication of the offer is complete when it comes to the knowledge of the offeree, or in other words, when the offeree becomes aware of the offer. And last point you can note, which is mode of communication. How do you communicate an offer? If you want to make an offer to somebody, how do you communicate? The Indian Contract Act says that you can do it verbally, you can do it in writing. So there is no restriction as such, unless there is any specific law which tells you that you have to make communication of an offer in writing only. I can give you an example. So there's an act in India known as Registration Act, which talks about, so whenever you purchase a house or let's say any kind of immovable property, you have to get it registered with a sub registrar. Now that act clearly says that a registration deed needs to be in writing. Okay. Anyway, so otherwise Indian Contract Act is quite clear about the fact that you can communicate your offer in any mode. It could be verbal. So I could tell you verbally, will you buy this pen for rupees 10? So that is also a valid mode of communication. You so the offeree cannot later say that no, since the offer was not put in writing, this is not a valid offer. That is not a plausible argument to take. Okay, mode of communication could be either verbal or it could be in writing. All right, so revise as in don't again, as I said before also, don't memorize each of these things. Just understand the concept and go with the flow. The flow that I have given you, basically a contract agreement difference, what is an agreement, starting with the concept of offer, what is an offer, how is an offer communicated to the other side. This is how you have to go with the flow. And once everything is complete, we are done with all the lectures, then you will be able to appreciate as to how far you have come. But if you go too fast, then you will miss the flow. Okay, so that is my humble request. All right, then I'll take your leave. Study hard and study wisely. Thank you so much.